In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the starter on this Ford F-150. This has the 5.4 liter V8, and although similar, the process might not directly apply to the other engines that were sold as an option with this truck. So having said that, if you need this or any other part, check us out at oneauto.com. Let's get started. Let's start by disconnecting the negative battery terminal so we can completely disconnect the circuit. We don't want to short anything out. There we go. Pull it off and set it aside. From underneath the vehicle, if you look between the front crossmember, control arm, and steering rack, right here you can see the wires that go to the starter. We'll have to remove all of these. They're in somewhat poor condition, so I'm going to spray them with some rust penetrant. Now the only ones we actually have to remove are these two right here at the bottom. That top one just connects the starter solenoid to the starter itself, so these two are the only two we're after. Let's take this 13mm mounting nut off. Okay, we're making progress here. Take this off of here. Pull this wire off. This is why you start with disconnecting the battery. And then let's get a 10mm on this one right here. Take that one out. Take this wire off. Okay, so now we have the two main wires going to the starter off. However, before we actually start unbolting the starter, I want to take this ground wire off of the engine block right here. That's a 13mm mounting nut. Put a 13mm socket in there. That's all you're going to fit, a thin wall socket. There we go. If you have a power tool, it'll be a lot easier. Take that mounting nut off. Now we can pull these wires away. So now we have all wiring basically out of our way. We can move this down, push it aside. This stud that remains here happens to also be a mounting stud, one of the three studs for the starter. So while we're here, why not just remove it? So let's get a deep 13mm socket and remove that stud. You can get this with a swivel from down here. This is probably the easiest one to get to. All right, so we've changed views a little bit so you can see what's happening a little bit better. We are looking from the back side of the engine. This is the transmission right here. That's the engine over there. So you can see the bolt for the starter that we just removed is this lower one. And the next one is going to be the one in the center right next to the exhaust. So obviously don't work when the engine has just ran if you can, because, well, it will be very hot. So 13mm wrench is all you're going to fit in here, unless you have some sort of a ratchet that'll go around this solenoid here and reach over to the bolt. I'm going to try a wrench. If that doesn't work, I'm going to go over to a socket with extensions and swivels, which we will have to do for the top bolt, but we'll leave that for last. Oh, broke it free. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to get my longer wrench out of here. Because I have one, I'm going to use a stubby 13mm wrench. That's going to obviously remove some leverage, but once this is broken free, it gives me a lot more swing here, so I can easily remove this bolt. Hopefully yours isn't rusted in place. All right, we got number two. Perfect. So, as you can see, right there is the top bolt. Very difficult to reach and very difficult to see. Almost impossible, actually. If you have a 6-inch 3/8 extension or 1/4 inch, but I wouldn't recommend 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch is going to be too big. As you can see, I got my extension, my socket, and my ratchet. The 6-inch extension with the ratchet and the socket together make exactly 7 inches of depth here, basically, from end to end. That is the perfect amount that you need, so 7 inches, measure it with a measuring tape, for you to get up here over the starter, have the ratchet go in between the solenoid and the engine mount. Make sure that your ratchet is in the reverse position, and then you can sneak your hand up in here. It's not gonna feel very good because it there's some sharp corners here. But if you can get that socket on the bolt, which is here, you should be able to get this bolt broken free. That's definitely not going to be easy. And hopefully yours isn't rusty. Oh, it's moving. Okay, I think I got it. Yep. So at this point, you can back it out, but you can't go very far. Because if you do, you're actually going to jam the ratchet right into the engine mount here. So I'm going to go as much as I can. And then I'll probably switch over to a different tool. Oh, looks like the starter just moved, which is great. That means it's not seized. A lot of times they do seize in the bell housing. You can continue with either a 1/4 inch drive socket Okay, there's the top bolt. And now, let's remove the starter. Tilt it down, and out. There we go. Now, take your new starter, make sure that everything here is clean, which it is for me, and slide it through between the frame and the exhaust manifold, or the exhaust pipe here, the catalytic converter. This will be the easiest place to get it in. Okay, just keep wiggling it until it falls in place. Let's thread in any bolt that you can thread in first. I'm going to start with this lower one, which was the stud. I just want it held in place so I can put the other ones on, especially that top one. I need both of the side ones to be in and almost bottomed out so I can put in that top one. That way I know it's perfectly lined up, because it'll be very difficult to see, so having it in place and positioned will make things easier. Put in the second one. I'm going to thread this one on all the way. Okay, that's pretty much bottomed, well, it's almost bottomed out. It can still move around a little bit. That's what I need so I can line up that top one. And, well, I guess it is time to line up that top one now. You're going to just have to feel for it. There it is. Remember, use the same adapter extension setup that you used before. It's the only thing that's going to fit. Okay, well, it's bottomed out. There's definitely no torquing that one, so we're just going to have to make it tight. The torque is only 18 foot-pounds for all three of those, so I'm not worried about it. I can definitely make it tight enough by hand. I just have to get something in there that'll reach it properly, because that shallow socket was starting to not be long enough. So let's see if this one will work. I know it's a swivel, but it's a little bit longer. It might give me the reach that I need. That's definitely nice and tight now. 18 foot-pounds is basically just about 1/8 of a turn after it's completely bottomed out. And I think I've achieved that at this point. Yep, that's as tight as I'm gonna be able to make it. Okay, so top bolt is installed. I can't torque this one either because of its location. So I'm just going to make it tight with a wrench. Okay, that's as tight tight as that's gonna get. This one, I can torque, so I might as well at this point. I'm gonna grab a deep 13mm socket, and let's go to 18 foot-pounds. All right, so they're all tight now. Now let's get these wires reconnected on the starter. The starter should come with brand new mounting nuts. This one is a regular mounting nut. It's not a locking nut, but it does come with a locking washer, which you have to remove and put over the wire, not underneath the wire. And then you have this 10mm nut here, but we'll leave that for later. I'm gonna put the main power wire in first. Make sure there's no corrosion on these wires. I'm gonna take a wire brush to this one and clean it up a little. There we go, that's better. I know it's not perfect, doesn't look new, but it doesn't have to. It just has to be clean enough to make good contact. Slide that over. Now you put the locking washer on and the mounting nut. Let's tighten this up while we're at it. This is a 13mm. Okay, this is bottomed out right here. All I'm gonna do is a little bump, just a quick snug after it's bottomed out. That is a strong enough connection. You don't want to twist this. This is a brass stud. It's a very soft metal, and it will break internally, and then the starter's bad, so you don't want to go through that. Let's remove the little 10mm mounting nut. There we go. All right, so there's that. It looks like it comes with this tab, which is most likely for a different application depending on what Ford put on here for a connector. Because I have a little eyelet, I'm going to remove that tab and just run the wire directly on here. If you had a little click type connector, you would use this. This also has a lock washer, so put that on. And the mounting nut, make sure it's aimed in the right direction. And although this is not a brass stud, you'd still want to be careful because it's very small. So tighten it up. Once it's bottomed out, give it a quick snug, and that's it. Stop right there. As a precautionary measure, if you want, you can put a little bit of silicone paste on the top of these. This should prevent corrosion from building up. You can go on the back side too if you want. Just coat these, and hopefully this helps extend the lifespan of the wires and the starter connections here. Now we can reconnect this ground wire onto the stud that bolts the starter. Slide this on. Make sure this also doesn't have corrosion. It's important because if it doesn't ground out well, the starter won't work. Definitely don't want that to happen. Start the nut on, and then we'll snug it up. The torque for this is 18 foot-pounds. That's it right there. Put this on. It might make a couple sparks. That's okay. It's normal. Tighten this up. You don't want to make this extremely tight. Once it's snug, try to spin it. If it doesn't spin, it's tight enough. It's perfect. If you tighten it any more, it'll actually crush the terminal here, the two ends, and it could over time expand it. It'll stretch, and then it won't hold on future batteries. The more you tighten it, the more you over tighten it, the more it'll stretch. So that's good to go. So there you have it. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, don't forget to leave a like, and if you have anything to say, leave it in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you can stay up to date with all of our future content. Thanks for watching.